Cheers everyone, Fulton here, and I am about to bring you my top 25 releases of the year 2017. You didn't think I could miss this one, did you? I know it's been a while, but you know, this is the best time of year. You know, forget about Christmas, forget about New Year's. We want to talk about what soundtrack made this year in 2017 so great and spectacular. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of albums that didn't make this list that people are going to comment about. As for this year, my focuses were my move, getting here and getting everything set up, my job, of course, my musical projects, and of course my personal well-being. So with those four things, of course I'd missed a lot of records this year, but I am very happy with this top 25. There are some new things in there that are really cool. We're going to get to those, and of course things that are going to be no surprise if you know me and know this channel. So we're just going to get right into it. Without further ado, here is the top 25-ish of 2017. So let's get this list started. Got it right here. We're going to be spinning around a lot, so get used to it. Is this how we're going to do it? We're going to start at 25, and we also have a tie, so big surprise. We're going to start off, though, with a band called Stolus, and I believe this was a self-titled record. I got to see these guys live, and they're really great guys, really great performance. This is pretty much Mars Volta worship, but there's a little bit more of a young punk rock energy to it. And as you all know, I was really pissed off when the Mars Volta broke up, so having something to kind of fall back on and enjoy in 2017 is really cool. These guys really do that style well and do infuse a little bit of their own energy to it. And of course, to couple with this, we have to kind of keep this grouping similar, of course. We have At the Drive-In with Inter Alia. So probably know why these things are linked together. Members of At the Drive-In did form later on the Mars Volta, but we do have this reunion record, the first record since Relationship of Command, and I will say this was pretty damn good. I mean, of course they're older now, they don't really have that energy they had when they were much younger, but that sound has been re-encapsulated, and from the first track on here you can tell, like, this is At the Drive-In, this is not Mars Volta, this band is back. And this band made a pretty kick-ass record. I really think these two coupled together made this year a real treat. So, moving on to number 24, we have the boys in Chon with Homie. Now I know this is probably going to be pretty low considering how much I praised their last album, Grow. But I don't want to call this a disappointment record, but this follow-up to Grow was not exactly what I was expecting. It was pretty much in the same vein, and the new aspects that they kind of did on this record I wasn't that big of a fan of. Still a great record, still great players, still has that wow factor in terms of instrumental guitar playing, but I think the songwriting was just not as focused and a little bit too out there for me. But still, it made the list. Definitely worth talking about. So this is Chon with Homie. Coming in at 23, we have a bit of a comeback record and a bit of a recovery record for the main brain of this particular project. This is Pain of Salvation with In the Passing Light of Day. This is basically a concept record based on Daniel Gildenlau's recovery from this very strange, like, skin-eating illness that he had for months and years, and basically he was in the hospital bed fearing for the end of his life, and a lot of the pain and the suffering wound up in the lyrics of this record, and of course the title, In the Passing Light of Day, is a very fitting metaphor for what he must have been thinking and going through. So with that, the band has returned to its progressive metal sound, but I still feel that the last few records have just lost a bit of gusto, a little bit of, I really don't know what it is. I don't want to call it a lack of focus, but there's just a little bit too much going with the flow on this. I think they could have worked on it a little bit more and really crafted a masterpiece record, but at least we got a record. That's the main thing. So glad you're better, Daniel, and this record still made the list anyway. Glad to see you back. Want to see you make another kick-ass record in the future. All right. Number 22, we have another tie. So we're going to start off with Blackfield 5. And this is a bit of a return to form with the return of Aviv Geffen and Steven Wilson. Real nice, Steven. Turn your back on us. But I must say, drastic improvement over Blackfield 4, which was sort of just Aviv working with multiple guests. That record did not impress me at all, but getting Steven back into the fold again certainly made this a more enjoyable experience. The sound is great, the songs are pretty good, but I still think that the first 3 records are where they're at in terms of the Blackfield discography. But if Steven can stay with Aviv into the future, they're going to make some really great stuff. Coupled with this is going to be the new Mike Portnoy progressive metal project, back with Derek Sherinian. This is Sons of Apollo with Psychotic Symphony. Coupled with the Blackfield record, I think these were both just very average based on the artistic abilities that these artists have. Not bad records, but just not really showcasing their abilities to the fullest. Again, still great records. I really liked the Derek Sherinian keyboard parts that were very reminiscent of the Falling into Infinity era of Dream Theater, and just having Mike work with him again was very cool, and they seem to have a lot of fun with this. Had Bumblefoot and of course Belushi on bass, and they definitely made this a very thumping thrill ride, to say the least. Alright, going to number 21, kind of another return to form of sorts with this one as well. Got to see this band live, finally in a full band setting, and this is Anathema with The Optimist. Coming off of Distant Satellites, I did praise that record quite well, but I remember towards the end of it, I wasn't quite sure what direction they were going to go in with the next record. And this record, The Optimist, is definitely a return to form. Let's pull this out of here. I'm not sure if it's a part 2 or a prequel to a record they did in the past called A Fine Day to Exit. You can definitely tell that some of the musical ideas were harking back to an earlier time, which totally dig it, totally love it, but I do think that capturing a previous or younger energy is very hard to do once you've already established yourself and have grown, you know, older and grown into yourself. But you can definitely hear that is much different than Weather Systems and We're Here Because We're Here. It's got a little bit more of a rock sound, but I do think that some of the songs had a little bit too much repetition for my liking, but still, Anathema captured that emotion, and that is what they do best. So really cool record, actually, and one I think any Anathema fan will love if they haven't heard it. So coming in at number 20, we have some of my best friends in the music business, and I mean, this is a 2017 release, but the music on this record actually came way before this year. So this is Ladder Math with their self-titled record. Great record, guys. I am super proud of you guys, and I'm so glad that this album finally came out. For those who don't know, this album was kind of sitting in the backlogs for a long time, and you know, the band grew a little bit impatient getting it out, and so did some of the fans and friends. I will say, though, as much as I love this record and as much as I love the songs, I think they actually have done a better justice of this record live, and I think it had to do with the fact that this record did come out much later than I think they were anticipating, and they grew as musicians and became a better live act. Not to say that the performances on this record are bad, but I just think that had it actually come out this year, I think they could have captured that lightning in a bottle and then just delivered that energy straight through with no delays. Either way, if you're a fan of, you know, the up-and-coming gent bands and the modern progressive metal scene, don't sleep on this, because this band is probably going to come to your hometown soon. I really hope they do. So keep an eye out for Ladder Math on your radar. Give this album a listen. Nice job, guys. All right, coming in at number 19. We have a record that unfortunately I think went under everyone's radar this year. So this is Tetra Fusion with Dreaming of Sleep. So this was the original band that Mark Michelle and JC Bryant, who later moved on to Scale the Summit and later left, were in. So when they left Scale the Summit, they actually went back to their original band and finished this record. And I think they were working on this album for like something of like 10 years. And yeah, the outcome was definitely worth the wait. Kind of cool packaging on this. I was very limited. This is number 55. I'm not sure if that's focusing. I think they only pressed this to 100 copies, and I'm very happy to have this. And again, it's definitely what you'd expect from guys playing in Scale the Summit. A lot of progressive metal, but this does contain vocals. So if you're a fan of Scale the Summit, and especially Mark Michel's bass work, very nicely done on this record, and of course JC's just very exotic and precision drumming. And you want to hear some vocals and also keyboards on this, really great keyboard lines on this as well. Listen to Tetra Fusion's Dreaming of Sleep. I think you'll actually like it. Especially because I don't think many people even heard this record this year, so check it out, please. Alright, keeping with the progressive metal kind of little run of records that I have right here, we have next up Caligula's Horse with In Contact. They've been wiring critics, especially on the Prog Archives, ever since their, I think, first or second record. So this being their third or fourth record, man, they just continue to grow and evolve and are really knowing how to shape their sound along with the changing of the times. Remember, their first record didn't have as much of the modern metal sound as it does now, but the evolution has been very slow and gradual to the point where you never even notice it if you were trying to focus on it, but it's definitely there. Production is really great. They spent a long time working on the concept and the songwriting on this, and the vocals are just brilliant. I love the vocals. So this band, kind of sad that he's not in Arcane anymore, but you know what, Caligula's Horse I think was his first baby, and you know, more power to him being back in this band. So love it, love the cover art, really cool artwork on this if I can not get a glare. Really great stuff. All right, and getting to another one, this one got a lot of praise, and I'm very happy that this band kind of returned to form, especially with their original singer back in the fold. And this is a huge undertaking in and of itself as well. This is Threshold with Legends of the Shires. And people were drawing a lot of comparisons to Dream Theater's The Astonishing, especially, you know, it's a modern double record in the progressive metal genre, and being a band that has been around for, you know, over 25 years, it does have a lot to kind of live up to, in this, so to speak. So they may have made their best record with this. I'm not going to jump to conclusions yet, but this is incredibly enjoyable, incredibly focused. The flow is unbelievable. It doesn't sound like a dated band. I mean, of course, you know, they still want to flaunt their original sound, especially because their original vocals is coming back. Kind of want to make him feel comfortable, kind of want to have him shine where he originally shined best. But there is this modern sound, and of course there's some of that middle period in there too. And the concept and the beauty of the melodies just came together brilliantly. And I think that if you're a fan of Dream Theater and didn't like The Astonishing, check this double album out. I think you'll like it. Alright, moving on. We have Leprous with Mylena, and I was just talking about this at the Protean Collective show just last night actually, and we were talking about how this record went into a more mellow, I'm not going to say pop approach, but certainly a more accessible approach. Definitely less jagged, less metal, less chaotic, but still has that unique Leprous sound. And I was talking about how I thought originality was dead in terms of how a band can sound these days, but somehow when I listen to a Leprous record, I do not hear any other band in their sound. I hear just them, and that's scary. And they hit it right on the nuggets with whatever mojo they've had from the start, because there's still not another band that sounds like this. And if any other band tries to rip them off, you instantly know that's a Leprous thing. But when I listen to this, I don't really hear any other bands. You know, it being not as, you know, frenzied as their last couple of records, I still think that this is a grower and one that has a lot to appreciate, even if you don't like it at face value at first listen. Get immersed in it, love it, because this is a solid record from a solid band. All right, where are we? Number 15. This one's a good one. I absolutely love the packaging on this. This, holy shit, this is like doom metal album of the year as far as I'm concerned. And I know that there was a lot of contenders for this spot, but this is the one that made it, and this is the only doom metal record on this list. So, the winner of that is Pallbearer with Heartless. This is brilliant, and I love the mini vinyl retro look to this. And a very simple CD. But what is on the CD is, well, drastically different compared to their last two records, and I think it was actually for the better. I was not the biggest fan of the last two Pallbearer records. I mean, they were great, but they didn't exactly stand out to me from the pack. I knew the singer had some pipes. I knew he could do this like really high Aussie thing that was really cool. But on this, the music itself went from straight doom with a slow tempo to more of a retro progressive rock sound. But the vocals, I feel, are what shine the most. I mean, the music is really brilliant, super melodic, but the vocals on this have actually taken it to another level. I mean, he's singing in a higher register, and he's belting it out with a lot less kind of screaming. And fuck, this is just brilliant. This is an absolutely phenomenal record, and to me, my best pick for their discography. And if they can keep this up, this band's seriously going more places than they've already gone, because that's damn brilliant. All right. Okay, we have another pair of releases. And this is from a gentleman that some of you may or may not know from YouTube. It goes under the username Little Red Guitars, and I think it's 2 now, because he lost his first channel. So this is John Poulin with a series of releases. One is called With Vigor, and the other is A Study in Moppishness. So these two records are incredibly limited releases. You can only really get it from him directly. And this guy's really, really great. And I love watching his channel, but I think more so than anything, I love watching where he's now going as a, as a musician and putting out records. Him and I, we have a lot in common, especially from like the early Blink punk rock stuff to our love for the band Rush, and then the modern era of like, Pliny and Nick Johnston and Interval, stuff like that. And that's exactly like where I come from. And to see someone who also shares this music is definitely it's just striking a huge chord with me. I know the metaphor sucks, but I feel right at home with these releases, because I know exactly where he's coming from and his approach. And it's very upbeat. It's all instrumental, but it's incredibly melodic. It's got that punk rock energy, but it also has the modern day, solo guitar player mentality as well. And he's just really blended that in a way that I never expected this sort of stuff to go. So huge shout out to John Poulin, and definitely check out his channel, Little Red Guitars, too, if you haven't already. Great guy, great videos. And now we're gonna move into some serious shit. So stay buckled up. If there's gonna be a guitar player to end all guitar players, it's gonna be this dude. We just put out a freaking killer record again this year. This is Marty Friedman with Wall of Sound. Finally got to see this master live, and I gotta say, this dude is just the epitome of guitar rock star. And his chops, like, they'll just melt the paint right off the wall. I mean, if you know Marty, you know Marty, and how masterful of a songwriter he is, and just how insane and delicate he is in polarizing his guitar technique. This is just a phenomenal record. Listen to it and get inspired, because he's still at it and he's still killing it. All right, number 12, we have a very cool one, if that doesn't slide off. All right, beautiful cover art to boot as well. This is ArchEKKO with their self-titled record. And this is basically like Pliny and Liquid Tension Experiment had a baby. This is wonderful, all instrumental once again, but just this this fusion of melodies with the guitars and the keyboard lines, a lot of solos too, but it's got that really happy, upbeat vibe with beautiful melodies, but also that sort of chaotic, sort of soloing and fusion that you would, you know, love to hear in more liquid tension. If you like both of those sort of descriptors, definitely check these guys out. Up and coming, solid players. Give them some love! Alright. Number 11. This is also in the same vein, but also has quite a mega group of personnel on this. So this is Nova Collective with The Further Side. So this is basically 2/3 of Trioscapes and 2/5 of the original Haken lineup. And this is just brilliant, absolutely incredible, explorative, mind-bending, progressive metal fusion. Again, all instrumental. These are records that do not need vocals because there's so much space taken up, and for good reason. There's definitely a lot of similarities to both bands, Haken and Trioscapes, and of course the Between the Bird and Me sound. But they made it all blend together in a way where it did sound like a new project, and that's always great to hear. You don't kind of want to hear like bits of this band, and here's a song. They made it work, and they really crafted 6 songs that will bend your mind, and again continue to push music in territories where it's never been before. Alright, so for number 10, this is the only one that I don't have a physical copy of, only because I'm not even sure if they're shipping it yet. And this is Intervals with The Way Forward. Now, I'm going to be picking this up when I see them in a couple months when they come by, so I'd rather support Aaron directly rather than wait for a pre-order from, you know, some third-party distributor. So that's why I can't show this to you now, but The Way Forward is taking Intervals in a step back in sort of concept. This is really cool. If you see the cover art, you'll know exactly what I mean. But musically and probably emotionally for Aaron Marshall, the most of The Way Forward. He's pushing his guitar playing as much as he can and still improving, which is scary because the dude's already ripping. And I think this record really hit home with him more than the last record did in Shape of Color. I know that record was very personal to him, and getting back to the instrumental roots of what Intervals originally started off as, but I think The Way Forward really exhausted his songwriting abilities and pushed it to territory that was a bit out of his comfort zone, and even to the listener's comfort zone. It did push it to new genre territories as well. So I'm very glad that he's able to explore all these avenues and still have his trademark sound. And Intervals is one of the leading bands in terms of getting guitar players to get their chops up, like me. Aaron, keep it up. Alright, getting to another modern guitar warrior. This is one of the records I listened to most this year, and probably has my favorite track of the year on it as well. This is David Maxim Mischich. Thanks, David. But Who Bit the Moon, new full length from David, and just a very focused, atmospheric guitar record. You know, if you love Pliny and stuff like that, you're gonna love this. But you know, David really knows when technicality is necessary. He's very great with writing electronic atmospheres and electronic melodies, along with his incredible guitar prowess. And I think the blend of that in his music is pretty remarkable, because it's like, it really kind of shows that less is more sometimes, and the dynamics that he has, they really do come to life more when they're used sparingly. And that's a good lesson to learn. And the song 687 Days, probably my most listened to song this year, and the song that got me to work every single day with an energy that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. So thank you so much, David, for that song and this record. Kill it. This next one's gonna be more sentimental than anything, but still, great little record. This is the man who got me into playing music, and endless inspiration from him every single time he puts out an album. This is Eric Johnson with Collage. Come on, can I just look this handsome when I'm his age? So this is sort of like a mini record. It's a little bit longer than an EP. There's 4 covers on it and 4 originals, and he just got that classic trademark EJ tone and touch. And still, beautiful vocals. I know this isn't for everybody. You know, people always like to consider his music adult contemporary, whatever the hell that means. But you know what? There's a lot to appreciate here. And tones for days. Loved the Beatles cover on this and the Stratagem track, which is basically just his modern day Cliffs of Dover, and just super upbeat. Love that track. Love the video. Check it out. EJ, thank you for endless inspiration. And come on. Continue releasing records this quick because I need more in my life. Come on, let's go. Alright, we got more homies. This is a release that I am so proud and happy to talk about. And it made it pretty high. And guys, thank you for this. This is Protean Collective with Collapse. And I remember just talking with Matt Zappa and Graham and Steph last night, and you know, seeing them play songs from this record again, and I truly believe this is their masterpiece, at least as of right now. But I don't think this is just a one-time thing. I think they could easily do this again and surpass this one. The songwriting is so incredibly focused on this. You know, they're incredibly technical on their instruments, but again, this is sort of the whole less is more for dynamics and songwriting's sake philosophy, much like the David record. But the songwriting and the production on this record just sounds so massive, and it was time well spent. I'm glad it finally arrived, and glad I finally got my copy. Thanks, guys. And if you're not on the Protean Collective train yet, or if this is the first time you're hearing about them, give Collapse a listen. I do not think you'll be disappointed. Great up-and-coming band. Give them some support and love. This one, this band seems to be ever evolving and ever changing, but all for the better, because they show they're not just a one-trick pony and prove they have a lot to offer. This is the Contortionist with Clairvoyant. They seem to be drifting more and more further away from the progressive deathcore that they started off with. This is the second record with Mike Lessard, previously of Last Chance to Reason, and I really think that he was the voice that this band needed. The beautiful melodies in the vocal lines I don't think could have been done by anybody else. He just has such a great tone and vocal approach, and it's perfect for their music. They really went atmospheric and created some sonic landscapes with this. It's got a bit of a slower tempo than Language did, and probably less heavy technical moments, but when you listen to this, it still sounds like the Contortionist. It still has this wall of ethereal sound. It's a sonic exercise. It really is. They really created something new with this, and I loved watching Joey Baca's reaction. It's like, I think we really got something new here. And then just like the whole dazed look on his face, yeah, that dazed look is what I have after listening to this, you know, too many times. This is the equivalent of getting high in all the best ways. Really great job, guys. From seeing a few songs, if they play that whole record live, it's gonna be phenomenal. Okay, next we have another set of two, but this is actually by the same band. Okay, so this is Mastodon with Emperor of Sand and Cold Dark Place. More so, I'm going to talk about this one, this being their first concept record, and I think 2 album cycles. So they are returning, kind of following up, we're going to say, following up to Crack the Sky, which was an absolute masterpiece. There's a lot of that sound on this record, but, you know, we kind of had to accept that a long time ago, that Mastodon is not just one particular sound. But I think now they're just a blend of everything that they've ever done, and that's great. Keep it up, guys, because the concept, the emotion, the lyrics, dealing with sickness and loss of family members on this, really executed well to how the band performed on it. And I think it had a big influence on making everything count just a little bit harder. So it's a great record. What can I say? And this being 4 unreleased tracks, I think from the sessions of the last 3 records, you really can't pick a record that these songs could have fallen on. They really just sound like in between tracks. Not saying that the quality is any slouch, because the quality on this EP is just as good as the Emperor of Sand full length. But it really just shows how dynamic and varied this band is, and it just seems that they can do no wrong. And not to mention this album art. If you blow this up and look at it, you know how amazing that is and how detailed it is. So I'm getting tired of talking. Let's finish this list. All right. So coming in at number 4, we have Scale the Summit, In a World of Fear. So now that Scale the Summit's lineup has changed and they're operating as a 3-piece, it seems that Chris Letchford has changed his approach in terms of his songwriting, because this is the first Scale the Summit record to have guest solo appearances. And we got names like Angel Vivaldi, Jeff Loomis, Nick Johnston, Per Nielsen, the list goes on. Not on every song, of course. You do want to keep it authentic, and I really want to hear what the band does, on their own. But it really feels like, I'm not saying something was lost with the changing of the personnel lineup, but it's just different. But I will say that this record is probably the most experimental Scale the Summit record to date. I'm not saying this in a bad way. There is some really, really great stuff on it. I just feel that I don't think that the guest solos were really necessary. I think that they could have, or at least Chris could have, still made a good record on his own, because Lightbox and Islands were unbelievable with just him. So I think the Scale Summit could have just been a Chris Letchford project without the solos, but still the solos are an absolute treat. Some of them I think are a little bit too ridiculous for the song. Some of the, at least the Jeff Loomis solo, as insane of a player as he is, I think that was a little bit too out of control for what that song needed. Just little things like that. I think the guests kind of took away from the sound of the band. So my one little critique about this, but still fantastic record. It's still one of the best progressive instrumental bands I've ever heard, so that's saying something. Okay, coming in at number 3, we got more homies, and this one kind of means a lot. This one's cool. So we talked about Astronoid last year, but we're going to be talking about Vatnet. Not Vatnet Viskar. That was the name of this band before some personnel changes, and there were some sound changes too. So Casey Aylward, a great love and a friend of mine, support you so much, bro. Love you. He basically became the face, the voice, and the main guitar of this project, and of course the name has changed too. So the aggression from Vatnet Viskar is still there musically, but is no longer there vocally. I loved Casey's approach even back in the early Hetfield and Hatfield days, and if you don't know what that band was, check out some old LOL blogs, and if you can find Tidal Wave Dreams on Bandcamp, definitely give that a listen if you like this record, because he already had it years ago. But I think that the focus and the emotion of what Vatnet originally was is still here, but Casey just pushes us to a new direction. And the reason why I bring up Astronaut is because he also plays an Astronaut as well. And you can definitely hear a little bit of the Astronaut influence on this record, as well as the original Hetfield kind of sounds that just his guitar technique naturally has, and his vocal approach as well. But I feel that the blend of those three things coming together emotionally and conceptually on this Vatnet record is remarkable. And the replay value on this, sky high. Loved it the first day I heard it, and the repeats that I gave this in a very short time, you probably don't want to know how many that was. Okay, last two. Here we go. A lot of people probably thought this was going to be number 1. It unfortunately fell a little bit short, and the number 1 just shot the arrow so high into the sky that that was just it. But we're going to get to that. So, number 2, it's going to be Steven Wilson with To the Bone. He's kind of ripping off my style these days. I don't know. What do you think? And the answer to your question, if you're thinking about it, the answer is yes. I do have the big boy. Love these packages. To the Bone. Steven Wilson gone pop. Bop. and definitely has a lot of accessibility, definitely has a bit more of an upbeat melodic approach, but still the prog side is there. He could never have dismissed that, and I think that's what he was trying to assure people before the record came out, is that it's pop-ish, and it's definitely pop-ish. There's definitely some more straight-ahead songs. This was just supposed to be totally different, and it totally is different, and it's why I can't really compare it to his other works. It does have some early Porcupine Tree sounds. It does have some really classic bands from the 80s like ABBA and Tears for Fears and other bands like that, David Bowie. But, you know, again, Steven has his trademark sound. It's one of those things where it's like, if you like Steven, you kind of like it all. But I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't like this. It's probably just a little too accessible, and maybe just not understanding why he needed this change in direction. Again, he's an explorer of sound, and he's just always trying to explore new performance techniques as well. And I can't fault him for that. He's a man of many talents, and he's incredibly brave. So I got to give him those kudo points for that. It's a very brave and daring release, and I think he did it well considering some of the backlash on it. I still loved it. Still spin this quite a lot, even though I don't think it is the masterpiece that Hand Cannot Erase was. Now there can only be one, and this one basically took my year by storm. From, I think it was February or something like that. This record was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and one that I think took like, what, 4 years or something to make, and it delivered. It delivered in ways that I was not expecting, and I don't think the future of music was expecting either, and that is saying a lot. But I do think that the title of this record and what's on the record are just perfectly synonymous. This is Disperse with Forward. And Forward, you know, we did just talk about intervals with The Way Forward, but just the term forward is a musical exploration in sound on this record, in terms of what can you do that is new and still make a great song and a great long play record that flows beautifully and one that has replay value. And it is to create an incredible hybrid of sounds, and I'm not quite sure if I was ready, and every single time I listen to it I just have to brace myself a little bit. Progressive metal from Poland, but done in a way that is incredibly jazz-based, incredibly pop accessible. There's sampling, there's electronic sounds, there's ambience. The vocals are sort of pitch shifted. There's just so much of everything. There's chaotic, fast technical drumming, and there is whisper soft dynamics as well, both in guitar, bass, vocals, drums alike. I think every single instrument shines on this record, and everything also has room to breathe. But I don't know how to describe this record. As many times as I listened to it this year, and every single time it knocks my socks off, I still have no idea how to describe it, and that is saying a lot. It is so dense and layered that you can focus on something completely different for like 50 minutes or however long this record is. It doesn't matter, because I've listened to this record on repeat so many times. The length of it does not matter. You can focus on something new and find something new every single time you listen to this record. That is how dense and layered it is. It's not overly chaotic when you're listening to it. It does not sound like there is too much going on, but you know there's a lot going on, and you can just, the mixing job on this was phenomenal. I mean, I'm sure this record could have sounded good 2 years ago. Add another 2 years onto it, you know, they made this, and what would it have sounded like had they released it next year in 2018, working on it for 5 years? I don't know, but what they delivered, despite the what ifs or even trying to guess how they made this, phenomenal piece of audio art. This is art in sound form. And I think you're just going to have to hear it to understand it. And that's all I have to say. Disperse Forward, Album of the Year, 2017. Unbelievable record. And the one that garnered my attention far too many times, and yet not enough this year. What was your number one record of 2017? And what albums did I miss? Because I'm sure there was a lot, but we did just go through a lot. So I hope you all have a very safe and happy new year, and we will reconvene hopefully with some more regularity. Be well, take care, all that good stuff. Happy listening. Post your list in the comment below. See ya.